I'll try to give you as much ahead of time, give you as much leeway with regards to making sure that you have space and time to get down on the ground. First thing we're going to do is what I call a skater. So if you want more cardio, then you're going to do sort of bigger arm movements, right? So we're going to do a side-by-side or side-to-side skater. So you're going to do this sort of motion side to side, right? Now, if that sort of curtsy is too much for you, then what I want you to do is just do a side-to-side motion like this. But try incorporating and using your arms while you're doing it. So if you're doing the skater, you're sort of doing a dip, and you get to see my cat come by here. Of course, she's sitting right in the middle of the floor. Yeah, great. She's not entertained by this at all. So nice big motion. You can, if you want, make a slightly bigger step. Marianne, if you want to make it a little more aggressive, you can kind of jump side to side. But initially what we want is just that sort of skating motion. So a little bit of a warm up there. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is what we call a pendulum lunge. And I'm going to come to the side here so you can see. You're going to take a step forward or take a step back. So as we take a step forward, it's into a 90-degree fashion, right? I'm going to use the same leg, and then I'm going to take a step back. So sort of forward and back, same leg. And you can challenge yourself by doing it slowly and sort of tap the foot and balance as you rotate. So if I float my leg here back, I'm balancing on one leg versus the other. So forward and back. You're using that same leg. The lunge is such a great leg strengthener. Wow, I love the lunge. Switch feet, switch sides. So same thing, so I'm going to step forward, right, in that sort of 90, and then step back. So the reverse lunge and the forward lunge, and you want to just keep that knee right over the ankle as you're going. So this is a forward lunge, reverse lunge. So someone mentioned that they've got this sort of protective feel in the chest, right? We'll do a little exercise to show you what most people have, or most breast cancer survivors have sort of this interior rotation. So we'll do an exaggerated march. So you're just going to kind of do an exaggerated march in place. And then what I want you to do is we're just going to stop, relax, and look at where your hands fall, okay? So if your hands fall interiorly rotated, right? The shoulders are sort of turned inward. What we want to try and do is get our hands to finish here. Generally, this is a pretty natural, after surgery, depending on how large your breasts are, depending on what's happening if you've been over the computer working on Zoom, we get this sort of interior rotation. So what we want to try and do is really open up the chest, and stretching the chest is so important for all of these exercises, stretching the chest and then working on strengthening our back muscles or our upper back muscles. So simple sort of chest stretch. We're going to warm the chest up. We're going to do an open and close. And when you do the open and close, back of your hands are here, and then you're going to, it's like you're going backwards with your thumbs. And each time you do it, you're going to really try to come pretty far back. So you're going to have the back of your hands meet in the front, and then, it's like you're hitchhiking on the going backwards. So we're going to do an open and close. We're starting straight across. And then as we warm up, we're going to have I'm going to have you bring your hands up just a little higher each time. So we're sort of going up into this sort of Y fashion as we go. And anytime you're standing, so back to posture, so keep going up with your Y. I'll just kind of describe. I want you kind of settle on your feet, slight bend on your knees, and you have your core tucked in nice and tight, right? So that's our standard sort of standing position. So up and down, keep moving the arms, and each time you're reaching just a little further. So I'm going to expand my screen here. Opa. Open and close. Sorry. There. Okay, you can see myself a little bit more. So I get a nice stretch. Now we've done a little bit of a stretch. I'm going to turn to the side. So we're going to pretend like we are doing a back dive into the pool, right? And so with that, I want you to think about marrying your hands or putting your hands together and opening up and reaching backwards like you're going to strike the water. So we want to create this sort of C shape in the front, opening the chest up and coming back. Now, if that throws you a little cattywampus, right, you can do it up against a wall so you don't fall over backwards, right? So you can have it so that the wall's behind you, and then you just sort of reach like you're reaching for the wall. But in general, we just want you to pretend like you're diving back into the pool, right? And it just helps to open up the entire chest, open up and kind of lengthen the abdominal area. All right. Next thing we're going to do is more things for the legs, right? We do a lot of leg work because the legs are such a long lever. They're large muscle groups. If we, getting your cardiovascular training helps if you have strong legs because you can be out biking or walking. They will carry you everywhere. So we want to make sure our legs are nice and strong. We're going to do a sumo wrestler position, which is sort of this wider stance, and our feet are sort of splayed out a little bit. And so we're going to do a bit of squat with the sumo wrestler, and we're going to have nice big arms. Now, if you want to have weights in your hands, you can, right? You don't have to have weights in your hands, but if you want to, you can incorporate your cans or your weights. So we're going to be in this nice sort of squatty position. I'm going to make sure I don't hit the chandelier here. Lovely. All right, so we're in a squatty position. The weights are going to be sort of right on the shoulder. We're going to squat down, and then we're going to press up into a press or an overhead press. All right, so squat down, and then press up. Anytime you're squatting, and I'm going to do this at the side so you can see what that looks like for a side position, we want to pretend like you're sitting back on a chair, right? So I want to get my butt back as far as I can. I don't want to be coming over the top of my knees in this position. I want to think that pretend like I'm sitting on a chair as I sit down. So I'm sort of tucking the core or the belly button in, and then sitting or squatting backwards. So back to our sumo. So down with the weights. You don't have to have weights at all. You can do this just pressing your hands up into the air, or you can use the cans. So cans are great because they're roughly, a pound each. And if this is too much, if you're having problems with your knees, you don't have to go down all the way. You can just kind of come down a little bit and then really think about just using the arms or pressing through. What I want you to think about also, as you're pressing through with your shoulders, really focus on getting the shoulders back as far as you can so that you're squeezing those shoulder blades in the back. And then come on up. Put our weights down. So we sort of stretched a little bit across the chest, and I'll do a stretch now. We'll do a few stretches through the whole process. And I'm going to do one thing where I move the little screen over. Okay. One stretch that I like to do is grab one hand. So maybe I usually pick my affected side, which for me is my right side. And I'm going to grab my wrist on that side. And I'm going to take my arm down the back, right? So I want to straighten this arm out, and then I want to see if I can pull it away, right? So I've got this sort of pulling away that's happening. And you're going to feel that, you should feel that all the way across the chest. So we want to pull that back. And then in between, I do this sort of thing where it's like a climber's thing where I kind of shake it out, like, you know, I don't know why, it just feels good. Grab the other side, so now we're going to grab the other wrist, grab, drag it straight down, and then pull it back. And you should think about sort of squeezing the shoulder blades together and really letting the chest open up as much as you can. One side, if you're, you know, depending on your affected side, it may feel tighter on one side versus the other side. So, you know, don't worry about that. It's just sort of, you got to try both sides to sort of do it. The next one I'm going to do is what I call a 90 degree squeeze. I'm going to work the shoulder blades in the back, and we're going to get you in sort of a seated position. So we're kind of in the seated position, and arms are at 90, and you're going to do an open and close. And when you get to the open part, you're going to really think about, we're going to pause and draw the shoulder blades together in the back, and then bring the hands in again together, and then draw. Now, you could do these where you had hand weights, so it's just adding a little bit of tension. You don't have to, you can just sort of do this sort of open and close. We're working on this shoulders. For the most part, what I find is the one limiter for most women, and this is post-surgery, moving forward, if you don't stretch the affected area, it's going to be tight, 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 tight. So it is a constant thing that you've got to work on, which is basically keeping the shoulders really as far back as possible, right? And that really is working on stretching and then strengthening. So you've really got to work on strengthening those shoulders or shoulder blades in between. So we've done sort of an opener. We're going to do another opener, which I call the backstroke. And so let's get in our sort of seated position. So we're in this like seated position, and arms are at our sides. And you're going to think about doing a backstroke like you were swimming. So you sort of flip your hand this way and this way, right? We're going to do one at a time. So we're going to do one side, and you think about striking the water behind you like you're swimming, right? So we're going to stroke, and you can do this up against the wall, or you can do it, and I'll show you, if you do it up against the wall, I almost like it better because you can't rotate, you know, when you're swimming and you do this sort of backstroke, you tend to kind of do this over rotation. Well, we don't want to do that. You just want to do this little shoulder opener where you're going to see how close to your ear you can get your stroke and what your range of motion is. And this is just something that we would work on, or you would work on, and try to see how much further you can get with your range of motion. So you, as I said, you can do this with, you can do it up against the wall, where as you do it, you can strike the wall and then sweep down the side. So you're doing kind of a combo move where you're doing a wall sit and then also sort of the arms going back and forth. All right, now get a sip of water if you need. We're going to move into some stretchy band exercises. So grab your stretchy bands. This is my homemade stretchy band. which is, I took a pair of pantyhose and I put loops on the end, right? I was trying to MacGyver something, right? So this makes a great stretchy band where you're just going to step on it and then you can do sort of, you know, the same raises that you would be doing. So if you grab a stretchy band, if you don't have a stretchy band, you can use a can, right? Or you can use any of your weights. And you don't even have to have any weight in your hand. But what we're going to do is we're going to do some strengthening with our bands. So create some tension. I'll use the pantyhose today just because they're kind of fun. And we're going to do a front raise. So the first one is, again, we're in that seated position, core is in nice and tight, right? Our knees are soft. And we always have a soft knee. I have it to the side so you can see soft knee. You don't want to rotate on a locked knee because that'll aggravate your meniscus and you don't want to tear a meniscus. So always have a soft knee. Okay. Arms, it's a little bit like we have buckets of water. So we're going to do this front raise where we're going to bring the stretch up to about the shoulder height, right? So we've got bring it straight ahead. And all of these I generally do, you know, sort of either an 8 count or a 10 count, just depends on how many I feel like doing. We'll do roughly about 8 today. So we're just sort of bringing these big buckets of water up as you're lifting up. And then we're going to do the same thing, and then we're going to do it up the side. So this doesn't have quite as much give as I like, so I'm going to adjust that. So now I'm just stepping on one half. So I'm going to do a side raise. We're bringing the band straight up to the side. And you see I'm not going up any higher than my shoulders. I just want tension going straight up. So we're just going to go, back of the hand is going up towards the ceiling. Nice straight arms. Creating a little tension, come on up. And you can do this without weights. I mean, you just do it with your hands. You don't have to have weights at all. So side raise, front raise. And then one more. Okay. In that same sort of vein, we're going to do one to the back, right? So it's creating a little bit of tension. And we're going to bring our hands, it's the same sort of thing, but instead of going forward, we're just going to bring them back. So it's a little bit of squeezing in the back of the back shoulder blade. So tension's here, and then we're going back behind us. So depending on how much tension you need, right, you're just going to bring those back up. If you have a weight in your hand, you're simply doing the same thing, get the seated position, and you're just holding it up behind you. So we're just doing this sort of rear motion. So that's what we call a back raise. Right, so a couple more of those. So we've got the seated thing, and we're just going to bring our arms back and creating that tension sort of on the back of the shoulders. And then we're going to flip it around and do another set of the raises. So we'll start with the front raise again. So again, you can do these with weights or without weights. And I've got, my feet are staggered now just because of the tension on my pantyhose. Lovely. Hands are forward, and we're going to do a front raise. So you're just going to bring your hands up right in line with the shoulder. Some of those stretchy bands, you can order these, you know, sort of online. I know a lot of companies are now sort of getting things back in stock. Certainly you can make sort of the homemade version. It doesn't have to be anything too expensive, just to give yourself a little bit of resistance. All right, and one more. Super. Okay, now we're going to bring them out to the side. So we're going to do that side raise. So out to the side. Four. 7, we'll do one more. 8, good. And then the back raised. So a little tension behind, kind of in that seated position. Arms are going to be back behind you when you're going to bring the arms back up behind. A couple more of these. Nice. Okay. That was the pantyhose. We're going to do bicep curls, and you can choose to do this. You know, you can have it where you use weights. You can use heavier weights. So one of the things that if you want to make weights, half gallon makes for a 4-pound weight. And if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, a gallon is 8 pounds, right? So for different weights that you don't have to spend any money on, you can fill up a water jug the next time you go to the grocery store. The only time that you buy plastic, if you want to buy plastic. We're going to do bicep curls. So with the weights of choice, you can also have a stretchy band. I'm going to switch it to weights, so we have hand weights in our hands. And we're going to do a little bit of balance as we're doing it. So we're going to balance on, pick the foot that is, or the side that's usually a little weaker. So my right side is always a little worse than my left side. So I'm going to balance on that one leg, and I'm going to do bicep curls. So you're going to keep the elbows in nice and tight, and then go ahead and bring your arms up as you're balancing on your foot. And think about your foot, and you're pressing all those toes into the ground and sort of staple your big toe down. Find a focal point forward to do the exercise. Switch sides. We'll do another set over here. Now, depending on how heavy these weights are, these are pretty light. So I'm doing, a set of 8. 8 one foot, 8 the other foot. Oh, there we go, off the edge. If these weights were fairly heavy, then maybe we just do one set at a time. Right, and then one more. Okay. We're going to do a tricep kickback. So now I have my weights, and I am in that seated position here. So I'm showing you from the side. Kickbacks are going to be elbows are up nice and high. My head is sort of looking down at the ground. Neck is sort of in a neutral position. And then I'm going to kick my hands out behind me. So elbows are up nice and high. So it's going to be kicking out. And you can do a little bit of a pause up at the top on the back end. So you're trying to really extend out. And then hold it up there just for just a slightly longer pause. A couple more here. Nice. We're gonna do another set of those. I'm gonna bring out the big water jugs just for entertainment purposes, right? Okay. All right, so now I'm back to my balanced foot, and I'm gonna do my bicep curls. And of course, these have water in them, so it creates even more of a strange imbalance or challenge. Let's see, keep going. Seems you joined us, I think. Switch feet, we'll do another set here. Couple more. Nice. All right, and we're going to do the tricep kickback. So from here, I'm sort of in this sort of bent over position, And I want to really kick the weights up, straighten the arm out as I'm doing it. A couple more. Nice. All right. Biceps and triceps. Super. Always get a sip of water at some point, at any point if you need it. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a wall sit. So find a space in your room where you can be up against the wall. We're going to try and do some motion there. So. All right. Whenever you do a wall sit, it's again great for the legs, and you want to try and do this as long as you possibly can. But we'll do it in sort of increments. I'll try to distract you with other exercises. So the wall sit, keep your feet together, keep your knees together, and then we're going to have you sort of slide down, pressing everything up against the wall itself. All right, so now I have everything is back up against the wall. And we'll start off with a shoulder roll. So my feet are pressed in and arms are at your side. Think about rolling the shoulders back as if you're touching the wall. You can touch the wall, great. So start rolling the shoulders and pressing against the wall. Cat wants some attention. Roll, 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 hold at the back. Roll. Roll, and then the last one, we're just going to hold it back. So hold the shoulders back, 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 and then come up for a rest. We're going to do that one again. This time, when we do the wall sit, so I'm here on the wall, and what I want to try and do is we're going to do a bit of a wall crawl, right? And so it's an opening exercise or an opener for your shoulders. So if it seems that this is too much to do, you're just going to do as much as you can and within your range, right? So now we're sort of up against the wall, pressing everything up against the wall. Get the legs at 90 or whatever you feel comfortable with. And I want you to think about having the arms at a 90 position and then sort of poking the hand up against the wall. So we're just going to do this sort of poking, poking. Now, if you don't have a wall here, so everyone keep doing that, you can do just a chair pose where you're sort of sitting in the chair pose and you're doing the same sort of thing. But if you can do it up against the wall, great. So we're sort of doing our wall sit and continue on with our poking. So you're just sort of bringing your arms up, down to that 90, up and down. And if it's too much to go straight up, you can kind of like poke out to the side as opposed to poking straight up. But you're trying to really sort of move in range of motion. And then come on up. Hopefully your legs are feeling good, right? We're going to do one that I call an Alpine Skier. And it is a standing leg exercise. And it's sort of like a chair pose for yoga. That I call this is like a giant slalom ski pose. So you start off with feet together, knees together. What we're going to do is bring our chest down to our thighs, right? So I've got my chest here, and I'm going to bring my arms out. So my butt is out or back as far as it can go. And then my arms are straight out. So we're sort of in this Alpine skier position, holding this for a couple more seconds, and then come up. We're gonna do that a couple times. So start off, come down into kind of like this seated position. Your chest is close to your thighs, and then bring your arms out in front of you. We're gonna go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come on up. And we'll do that one more time. And come on down, seated position, straight out. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Super. Nice. All right. I have the chair over here. Get a sip of water if you need it. We've got 31 minutes. Now, I have chair with a pillow, and you can do this. We're going to do a modified plank on a, you can also do it on a couch or on a chair. Just depends on how much cushioning you need. But what we want to do is get into that plank position on something. You know, generally if you're doing a plank on the ground, it can be or feel like it's, it could be too much for you. But we're going to do it modified on the chair. So you can do it on a couch or another, you know, sofa, whatever it is, or on the bed. So the modified plank, we have our hands in that 90 position. Legs are going to be back out behind us. So get yourself comfortable. Come into the 90 position up with your arms. Put your feet out, and then we're going to hold that plank. And we're going to hold. We'll just do it in sort of 10-second increments. 9, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then rest. Just bring your foot up, up to that position. And because we're here, and we can, you know, sort of put some stretches in the middle. We'll do a standing hamstring stretch. So your feet are staggered. My hands are sort of here on the, where I just had them for my modified plank. What I'm going to do is 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. I'm going to push my hips backwards and my shoulders or my chest down towards the ground. So you're going to feel the stretch in your leg that's forward. You can feel the stretch also. I feel it in my lower back today. I feel this in my shoulders. So sort of getting this nice deep stretch in all those areas. Soften the knees and then switch. So now I'm going to got 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, same thing. And I'm going to do this sort of push out, push back, and push down. So sort of pushing down onto it. I've got my head down, looking at a spot on the ground. Taking a nice deep breath into it. And then when I come out, I always sort of soften the knees and come out of the position. We're going to go back to the plank again. Again. This time we're going to hold it for 15 seconds. So challenge yourself. You're going to just do what you can. So grab your hands, have your elbows sort of right underneath your shoulders. Get yourself nice and stable. The back is flat, it's not rounded. Your butt is not too far in the air, and your hips are not dropped. You're sort of middle ground. So we're going to hold it here for 15 seconds. And I can see my timer in the distance, or until the cat stops crying. That could be a while. Hang tight. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice. Of course, you can do planks all day long. Planks are just a great overall, you know, core exercise that as long as you can do it, you can do a modified plank on, you know, a bed. You know, the angle's pretty good if you're doing it on a bed. You know, we're doing it on a chair, which is here. If you're doing it on the ground, it's going to be a little more difficult. But having that nice cushion with doing it on a chair is fantastic. Okay, so modified plank, but good for just about everything. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to switch it up and do some exercises on the ground. So if you would grab your mats, or if you want to come down to the ground, that would be great. And every time you're getting up and off, you know, up and down off the ground, there's sort of a good way to do it, you know, bad way to do it. The way that you want to do it is that you want to take a step forward. So you're sort of taking a step. So you have 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, and then you're going to put one hand down, and we're going to bring the other leg back. So this is our 90 position, and we've got hands and knees, and you know, my knees are directly below my hips. My hands are going to be right underneath my shoulders. And the first thing we're going to do is a modified push-up. And this is the position that we're doing it in. There's 2 positions you can choose from. This is position 1. And then position 1, and I'll show you the position 1, I'll demonstrate it. So basically it's this position, and we're going to drop the nose like we're going straight down to the mat, and then come back up. So that's position 1. Position 2 is that we're going to flatten the legs out, right? So now I've got my body flat, and I'm going to come down and up. Okay, so you're going to choose your position, and I'll do the ones in the first position. And again, all you're doing is in this position, we're going to come down, and you're going to think about dropping your nose down to the mat, and we're going to do 10 of these. I need to teach my cat how to do these exercises. It would be fairly entertaining to see if she could be doing a few exercises as well. I have had taught my cat several COVID cat tricks, which I won't demonstrate today. Now she's laying on my little thing here. She's gotten quite good at the cat tricks. So I've gotten her to, she sits and then gives me a paw. I've gotten her to sit on her hind legs, and then she also sits on her hind legs and boxes. She turns. I think if we're locked down anymore, then we'll probably be doing some sort of circus act, but that's where we are at the moment. All right, we're going to come back up to the 90 position. We're going to do a bird dog. So bird dog is, we're in this sort of stable position. We're going to bring one arm straight out ahead of us, and then kick the opposite leg out. When you're doing this, I want you to keep your hips perfectly still, flex your foot so your toe is down. You're going to find a point on the mat to look at, and so you're going to kind of hold there, and then come back down to the center. So again, we're going to start off, and we're just going to keep rotating back and forth. So one arm out, kick the opposite leg out. So your foot is flexed, and you're sort of staying nice and balanced. You're going to feel this throughout the core. And then come back down. Back again on the other side. So arm out, leg out, straight ahead and down, hold. Think about a teacup on your back. We're not spilling any tea. And then come back. And then again, so we're going to go forward, kick, down, and then come back down. We're going to do another set of push-ups. So I'm going to do this, the other version of push-ups. So it's here. So I'm sort of got my body in this sort of flat plank, and similar to what we were doing before. And I'm just going to do a lower, so we're going to do 10 of these. Keep the core in nice and tight. So you're just going to pace yourself and do whatever you can. If it feels like you can't do either of these, I just want you to hold in that position. Maybe come down to a slight bent elbow and just hold it. So keep the feet on the ground for the modified version. We don't want to make it any more difficult, so we're going to do, I'll do one more of these. And good. We'll do a little stretch since we're here. We're going to do a child's pose. So toes together, knees apart, and shift your butt back to your heels, and then reach forward. And then nice and deep, relax back into it. When we do the child's pose, you can switch your hands to one side. So if you reach over to the left, like you're reaching over, and then kind of push down, so you're getting that stretch down one side. And then walk your hands back to the middle, and then over to the left, and push down again, and then come back up. So nice stretch. The stretch that I did last, I guess this week with my other class, was the what we call a Q4, or I'll show you how to do the stretch, and I think you can see everything from here. So I'm gonna have you on your back. Come on down to your back. And what we're gonna do is you're gonna take your ankle. So we'll start off on the right side, and I have my right ankle on my left knee. And so I've got this sort of angle, and I want to have it so that I don't want to have my calf up this way. I want my knee sort of pressed out. And I'm going to raise my foot off the ground, and I'm going to reach in between my legs and grab my thigh. And as I'm pulling in, I'm pushing away with my right elbow. So I'm sort of pushing the elbow, using that to push my knee away, and then trying to get a deeper stretch. What you want to try and do is think about relaxing the hips back to the ground, right? So you're not raising your hips up too much. You're just sort of taking a nice stretch, a nice sort of deep pull, but not yanking one hip higher than the other. So we just have this nice pull. Now, in this position, I want you to take your hands out, and then we're going to slowly lower that leg over. So my foot is on the ground on the side, right? My knee is up towards the sky. I've got the other thigh that's sort of backing up my foot over here. And what you want to try and do, this is a good chest opener as well, because I've got my shoulders on the ground, so you can tee your arms out. Keep this knee pointed up towards the sky. And you're going to feel this, you can feel this in various spots. I mean, I can feel it in my glutes. I can feel it, along my sides and my obliques, depending on how big the stretch is. When you come out of the stretch, it's really important to sort of roll your hips over. Don't lever your legs over. We'll do the opposite side. So now I'm going to bring my ankle over to my top of my knee. I'm going to grab through again. So I'm grabbing my thigh, and pulling it back towards me, and then pushing away with my left elbow as I draw it back in. Now you can do a version of this in a seated position, which is also quite nice, but we'll just do it this way for today. And then we're just, generally stretching. You're holding for 20 seconds or so. Again, we're going to slowly lower this foot over. So now I've got that foot on the ground. My shoulders are both touching. I'm going to try to just take a nice deep breath into it and relax my hip back. So I'm sort of trying to relax the opposite hip, or the hip sides of my left hip now. My left knee is in the air, my left hip, I'm just trying to relax it back down on the ground. And then when you come back out, you're going to roll over. All right? We'll do a little curl where we're curling into ourselves here. So you grab your shins, pull in. You're bringing your forehead to your knees, and then back out just a little bit, and then back in, and then back out. So a shoulder opener that I like, it's kind of like it's sort of the opposite of the, where you're trying to get your shoulders on the wall. We're going to try to do a shoulder, it's not the opposite, but it's sort of a similar thing, but we're doing it in a seated position. So my hands are behind here, and I'm pressing into the mat. And so what I'm going to try and do is roll one shoulder down like I'm tapping, tapping forward and then tapping back, right? So you try to keep the arms straight. So you're sort of rolling one shoulder forward and then back. So roll one shoulder forward and then back. So we're just going to keep flip-flopping back and forth where we do this sort of shoulder roll and then back. And when we go back, so it's like this forward and back, I really like to squeeze the shoulder blades in between and sort of exaggerate that chest opening. I can really get an opening on the chest. Forward roll, and then back, and then forward roll, and back. All right, I've got 48. So I want to leave some time or a little bit of time for other stretches that you would like, and make sure that I hit. I'm going to talk a little bit about lymphedema. So I'll have you come on back up off the ground, and we'll do a couple lymphedema exercises. When you think about lymphedema, and then I want to do another stretch for the on the wall here. We do a breathing exercise generally when you start lymphatic drainage movement, and it's a dragon breath or breath of fire, and it's sort of a breathing mechanism where you're trying to get the torso to work in this pumping action to help move the fluid out of where it is pooling. I had on my right side, I had 20 nodes taken out. So I had an axillary dissection. So for me, on my right side, when the heat comes up or when I'm stressed, my arm will start to swell. And so I generally will get swelling in the sort of upper part of the arm. I'll get it in my back and in the side. So a few things that I do is I do this sort of series of exercises, and they're just kind of simple. I mean, you can do much more of a brushing technique, which your physiologist or your physical therapist might have shown you if you had gone through physical therapy. But the breath of fire, we start off with, you think about it, have like a little triangle here. think about taking a nice deep breath and sort of, when you take the breath, your stomach sort of pooches out. So you're taking a breath in and your stomach is sort of distended, and then you exhale it out. So you take a breath in and your tummy's out, and then press it in. So sort of this back and forth. So inhale and then exhale. So take a deep breath in and then out. So sort of back and forth to kind of get the movement going. So it's sort of this in and out of the pumping action. That's one thing that you would do to start it off. The next thing is just a simple, and you can do these sort of throughout the day. So you'd start off with the breathing, and then you could go to a simple hand action where we're doing sort of a pumping action. So our hands are down at our sides. And again, I'm in a sort of seated position. My knees are bent, my core is nice and tight. And my hands, I'm squeezing my hands at the bottom, and then I'm squeezing my hands at the top. So it's just this swinging motion where I'm squeezing on both ends of the motion, right? And it's squeezing at the top and the bottom. You know, one of those little stress balls are quite good for the muscle action. You know, when the lymph nodes are taken out, the muscle around it helps to move that lymphatic fluid. And what we're trying to do is move it from, you know, the drain. If your nodes are taken out on this side, we want to move it to this side or move it to the inguinal. So we want to move it down the body in a way. But in order to do that, we've got to move it out from the extremities and in. And then the last one for these exercises is just that, it goes back to the open and close, which we did at the beginning, right? So we're gonna do that sort of open and close. And then I even saw one physical therapist who did the chicken dance. I was like, really? Okay. Where they just had them doing like arms underneath the armpits and doing the sort of chicken dance. And any kind of motion is good. So exercise is good for lymphatic fluid buildup because again, the muscle is working to help move that fluid up. All right, so if things start to get a little more swollen, it's the heat that tends to bring it up, or stress will bring it up as well with your cortisol levels. You know, certainly now in the time of Corona, you know, stress can be something that's going to bring your lymphedema up. So think about that. One more stretch, and then I'll open it up. And if you have any more questions, I like to do, well, I'll say 2 more stretches because these are sort of my favorite stretches. And I'll move the camera slightly so you can see. I picked the door frame. So I have found that after my surgery, both between the surgery and then the radiation, that, you know, you get a constant shrink in the area and this sort of tightening or balling up. And I'm 4 years out from my surgery, and I find that if I don't stretch, I will start to get muscle cramps and sort of this balling up or tightening. And so one stretch that I like to do to kind of to lengthen everything out is to grab the door jamb. So I take my fingers up on the edge of the door jamb and just clasp it, and then just lower my body. So now I've got this sort of lengthening of the body on that one side, and it just feels great. I kind of do both sides, but I really find that if I don't do my affected side, that it could be, you know, it's much more painful. So make sure you do both sides. I'll go into the kitchen and do the other side, although this is not my affected side, so it doesn't feel, it's not nearly as dramatic. The other stretch that I like to do is sort of the walking sort of door jamb, or I'm here at 90, right? And you've got your arms on the door frame, you've got 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, and you're sort of pressing in or walking through the door. Your arms stay on the door jambs. And if 90 is too difficult, you can bring your arms up and kind of walk through. And you don't have to do it on a walkway. You could simply just do it on the wall itself. And if you've done this in physical therapy, you're squared up here, your arms on the wall, and then you sort of slowly turn away. I did it with a 90 position, but you could also do it with a straight arm, where you're sort of straight arming it and then turning away from it. Those are all, really good stretches. But I find like the stretching is really something that is absolutely imperative to kind of keep me happy.